We're going to find a candidate. If I have to go to Bunkerville and help somebody up there run for mayor, or somebody down in Laughlin running for office down there, then we're going to do it. We're going to spend the effort. I was told when I ran for Assembly District 17 that we're not going to waste the time or the effort up there because it's losable. I pulled 4,500 more votes than what anybody expected. It's now a competitive district. When I look at it, I've got one thing I will say. No time will I ever tell and support a Democrat candidate. Nowhere. That is not in my nature. We are going to support Republican candidates and endorse them. I will not. And the reason I say this, I found out we endorsed the mayor of North Las Vegas, the Clark County Republican Party, a Democratic candidate. And you know what the excuse was? It was better than the other choice. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm done. And I want to say this for one thing. Danny, thank you for given me the opportunity to speak here. It took a lot of courage, and I appreciate that. And I got a lot of respect for you, and I know we're going to work ahead together. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Well said. All right. Jill Douglas is coming up here. Jill Douglas is a concerned citizen, community leader, and activist. America First constitutional conservative, successful entrepreneur, accomplished corporate vice president, certified business coach, proud daughter, wife, and mother of Air Force veterans, and granddaughter of a chief of police. Most importantly, she's a Christian woman, the mother of 4 sons, and blessed to be a grandmother of 8. She's got over 30 years experience of success in the financial services industry and was voted by industry peers as president of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors in both Southern Nevada and the state of Nevada. A lifelong Republican, she's volunteered, worked, and hosted fundraisers for many Republican candidates, has served as an election poll worker and a certified voter registrar. Most recently, she ran for Nevada State Senate District 6. She's currently the president of the Battle-Born Republican Women, where I've spoken. That's how you and I met. A member of the Nevada Republican Club and Central Committee, and member of the CCRP and the state GOP. Please welcome Ms. Jill Douglas. Yeah, do you want to sit over there, and then we'll just do okay. What do you think, Mr. Chairman? So I'm going to ask the questions as if I were Jesse Law, I guess.
Okay, that sounds good.
And it's disappointing that he didn't come, because I think these discussions need to be had. People need to be able to ask the questions, because we all want to be on the same page. We've got to get together. We've got to quit the squabbling, and we've got to work together. And to the point that Bob made, and it's such an important point. Let me ask you that first, Jill, about getting new candidates and supporting great candidates, because so many people I've heard about who might be great, when they say they might run, they don't get support from the party because somebody's already picked their whoever, right? Their hand-picked person. How do we get good candidates? How do we encourage them? Because when you get somebody who's really good, and then there's no support, then they just get disgusted with the whole process and say, the heck with it, why should decent people run?
Thank you for that. Before I answer the question, so don't start the timer yet on me. I do want to thank those for putting together this debate. Yes, social media is a real thing, and there's a lot of misinformation. And this, despite what some people have said, I did not put this debate together. I was simply invited to the debate, as was Jesse. And so I want you to know that. And then to the point that some have alleged that I'm like a Hillary Clinton who's been given the debate questions. I appreciate your clarification that you don't even have any questions.
No, I just have some of the Clark County
I don't know
Republican
what
parties.
is going to be asked of me tonight. And then I also just want to say to Bob Olson, Bob, I appreciate you because you're willing, you have a willingness to serve, and where we're like is we have a passion for the Republican Party, and we have a passion to serve, and I appreciate that. Obviously, the things that we agree on are that the party is in need of a change of leadership, and that current leadership has been ineffective. and that the party is broke and that needs to change. And that is a responsibility of the chair. So for those things we agree. I hope that we can come together and work together in the future. Again, I know that there were some questions from you and Stan about the format of the debate, but again, it was not my debate. I had nothing to do with anything to do with this debate, except I was called and asked if I was available. So I will say that, Bob, throughout this entire campaign, you will not find that I have said anything at all negative towards you. And have tried to, I think the entire Win Clark County movement has had things said about it that are not correct. It is just a group of people. It's not even an organization. It's got no charter. It's just a name that a bunch of people that came together who wanted to advocate for a change in the party, to improve the party and improve the results, gave it. And so you have said a lot of negative things about me, and I have let them, every one of them, go. And so I hope moving forward, because it's difficult for me when you say that you want to be a peacemaker, and yet every day on your Facebook page, because we are friends, I see what you say, and it's been every day since January. And, but I am, you're free to have your opinion, and I harbor no ill will. And I've not said one negative thing about you. I appreciate the willingness of anyone who's willing to step forward and try to make the party better. So thank you. Now, what was your question again?
The question was, how do we get good candidates?
Yes.
Because obviously that's a big,
Yes. Right.
one of the things the Clark County Republican Party is supposed to do.
So this-
identify and then support them. Because
Yes.
if you don't, then people just get disgusted with the process, and good people don't want to run.
Right. So the Democrats have a really good process put into place where they actually vet candidates, and all candidates start in a system with them. And they make sure that candidates go through candidate classes, speaking classes, fundraising classes, how to make phone calls, how to knock on doors. They vet people that meet certain parameters and profiles, people that are involved in the community, that are involved in the party, that they look for certain skill sets, they look for certain backgrounds for certain demographic areas. They look for people who, have some money of their own to put in races, but also can raise money. They look for, for certain people, they vet people, they all start in this certain process. And then they start looking at what races are the correct races for the individual. And so there's a determination made that, hey, we need someone like you that, has a background that's really good for these issues in this area.
Why don't the Republicans, so that sounds great,
and
but why the
that's what
Republicans
we
don't
need to
do
do.
that? They're not doing
No.
that now? Wow.
No, and this is one of the other things, the lack of our vetting and candidate development, recruitment, candidate development program means that our Republicans get into a lot of races where they're primaried. And if you'll notice, you seldom ever see a Republican being primaried. And the issue with the primary is that we don't have the big amount of money that a lot of the Democratic candidates have. And it means our candidates that run have to spend way more money in the primary than they need to spend. And that's money that they need for the general. So if we could do some better recruitment and development and training, we could try to cut down on the amount of our candidates that are primaried. What ends up happening to us is we'll get so many people, and good people, and then they get so battered and bloody and bruised in the primary that they come out of the primary totally anti each other. And then instead of jumping on the person who wins the primary and helping them, they don't show any support. And we also have to have candidates who are agreeable to saying, okay, we're going to run, but at the end of the day, whoever the voters decide is the winner of that primary, the loser of that primary has to come around that person and say, we're going to help.
Right, right. Yeah, that's so true. I had a candidate come to me, no names, a couple of years back because somebody got in the race at the last minute that she didn't expect. And I said, you want my opinion? You called. You want my opinion? I said, you know, you better jump out and have a ticker tape parade for this
Yeah.
person. I said, because you got to think long game. Because you're going to, if you make enemies, you're not going to do well in future elections because a lot of people will run more than one time, obviously, right? Because they're trying to, but you have, if you have ill will toward people
That's right.
and you're, you know, you're a bad loser, then you just wind up hurting yourself. And that's what happens sometimes. So when the Democrats do this, they basically, as you mentioned, they don't get primary because they'll put one person up there for an assembly district. That's it. Well, how do Republicans do it? Because some Republicans will say, well, how dare you say I can't run for, I'll just pick one, Assembly District 12. How dare you say I can't run for this? This person wants to run for it. You know, they're going to run opposite me. So what? I still have a shot. And all that does is dilute resources, and it's difficult.
Right. Listen, and they're right. I mean, anyone has a constitutional right to run, and you go down, you pay your $100 filing fee, and you can run. But I think if we start really building this really effective vetting, recruitment, development, training program, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, but we will get to the point of people realizing that if you want the party support and the utilization of some of our resources, the precinct workers that we're going to develop, the volunteers to help you, that, you know, that we need to be able to weigh in. And you may get to the point in the future where it's like, you know, that you actually have a vetting process and you have to say, look, this person is a better candidate for this race for this reason. Can you sit this one out? Can you help be a volunteer? And then let's find a better race for you. Sometimes, look, we need really good people in the state assembly and the state senate. So sometimes you may be better off running for one of those races. Maybe you're going to have a school board race coming up in 2 years and your whole big issue has been education. And you've got the really strong background for that, you know? So
they come out of nowhere and they want to be in Congress. Come on, Jill. They all want to be in Congress.
Let's
the first time.
put your ego aside and let's really determine based upon your skill sets, based upon your background, based upon the issues you're passionate about, based upon the demographics of the area that you live in. You know, what are you better suited for? Look, we have all these county offices. You know, we have a county recorder, we have county treasurers, we have all these county offices, and we don't have any Republicans in the county offices. You know, we finally got April Becker in the county commission, and the county commission is probably the most powerful entity that affects our lives. And so, you know, targeting these next county commission races, Justin Jones has got to go. You know, if we can get rid of Jim Gibbons down in Henderson, it's got to go. We have got to have a voice in our government.
And to your point, I think direction is necessary because when
Yes.
people are just bleeding resources from the county or the Republican Party in general to run for, I know I want to run anyway, and then you have two different people, and it just
Yeah.
makes it very, very difficult to do.
Yes.
Talk about the money. You were talking about how broke the party is. Now, for those who don't know, for the people in the back, let's talk about where the money comes from initially and where it's supposed to be going and why it's not going there.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to open up my heart for a moment. It brings me zero pleasure to have to talk about the party finances and have them be in the condition that they're in. And listen, I was interviewed, you know, by Jessica Hill on the Review Journal, and you will see that in the interview that she did with me, that while I mentioned concerns, I didn't go into details. She asked me for details, and I will tell you that I didn't want to trash the party in the newspaper, okay? And so I just told her, I said, I'm not even going to discuss it, okay? But in this forum, I will, which is the responsibility of the county chair is to do the amount of fundraising necessary to get conservatives elected into office. So if for no other reason, change is necessary because our party is financially broke. We have not done the fundraising necessary. I can show you Jesse Law's goals for this last 2 years. And the bottom one was to raise $360,000. I'm not sure that the party brought in $40,000. We brought in $14,000 from the Trump campaign when they rented our office, but we've constantly been in arrears. And finally, we owed $40,000 in rent. And fortunately, the landlord was willing to do a compromise on the amount and settle for less. And, you know, I haven't seen the books. I'm not the treasurer, but I believe we cut a check for $17,000 and we have something like $11,000 in the bank. Now, why is this all important? Because if we want to put together proper recruiting, training, and development programs, if we want to be able to partner with campaigns, and look, I also want to say, because people said, well, the county party is not responsible for running campaigns. I totally agree. We are not campaign consultants or campaign managers. Okay, the candidates themselves have those, but there are things that we can do to partner with the campaigns, because we have an ability to attract media. And if we come together, we can do things that are helpful. We could do billboards. We could do certain signage that questions, you know, things that might say, want lower taxes, elect Republicans. You know, we can put together the picnic in the park with the taco truck and bring in the candidates from that area. You know, we can do the town halls and invite the independents so that we listen to their kitchen table issues and help them understand how we're the party that's going to help solve those issues. But we can't do any of those things if we don't have money. So the key to doing what we need to do, the critical mission of this party, is that we must come together and elect conservatives who champion our values. If you know, our pain points start locally. The property taxes that we pay, our economy, our educational system, our public safety, it's all locally based. Yeah, the gas taxes. So we've got to get Republicans elected. And so the key to us make inroads on the city, county, and state level is to have money to do things that are supportive of our conservative values and helping to amplify the messaging to relate to those kitchen table issues that create pain points and position our candidates as being the solution. So it takes money. We have to have money.
Now, I took this right out, by the way, so you know, the responsibilities of roles for the Clark County Republican Party, just so you know. And one of the things, speaking of messaging, is they're supposed to do, develop an effective messaging strategy. So how do we do that as Republicans? Because a lot of people are moving here from California and other places where they've been taxed to death and things like that. And they need to be reminded that, you know, in order to not replicate what they left, they need to vote conservative. I mean, how do we get their messaging out? What needs to be done on that end?
That's a great question, and I appreciate it, because we have to stop assuming that we know what people care about. We have to get in their communities and ask them what they care about. We have to build relationships within these communities. We can't have a presence in a community, oh, we want to improve the Latino vote, so we're going to go open an office, you know, in this Latino community, and we're going to pop up and we're going to say, hey, vote for us because we're pro-business and we're pro-family, when we haven't had a presence in the community and they don't know us. So we have to stop just popping up during election year and saying, vote Republican, we're better for you, when they don't know us. We have to have a presence. We have to show we care all day, every week, every month, all year long. Because when we build a relationship and we show that we care, then you've earned the opportunity to have the conversations that can actually change people's minds. But we've got to have a strong communications team. And I think we've been working on creating a blueprint. We're We're operating with a high level of confidence that this year the Clark County Republican Party Central Committee members are ready for change, and we want to be able to hit the ground running. And we will have a strong communications team, a strong public relations team. We will have a strong community relations team that will help us really be a stronger part of the communities within the city. We also want to grow our membership, because our membership should look like the community that we represent. And the only way it's going to look like the community that we represent is when we have a presence throughout all of our community, not just in certain suburb areas.
Another thing we need to do on messaging, I think, is after the session, and correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, and this is already happening, after the session, we've got to be able to explain to people, listen, the governor vetoed all these horrible bills, and get that message out and remind people that we need to keep the amount of Republicans in so they can't override his veto. Very, very important. After every legislative session, there should be some kind of scorecard. If you're already doing that, forgive me. But I think that would be a very good thing to send out to people to remind them how much it mattered.
Yes, we as a party actually need to have a closer, stronger relationship with our elected officials, and we don't, but we do. We need to. And I was very present, and this. I was part of we call it the law group, the Legislative Action Warriors group. There's over 79 warriors who are totally committed. I mean, all day, every day for the entire legislative session. We were like, this is being heard. This is being heard. We were down there. We were writing letters. We were making calls. We were driving down there. We were testifying. We were so committed. I'll tell you, it's like when the session ends, we're like, what do we do now? We don't have a life. We've been so intensely involved. It would be, everyone should experience at least just one legislative hearing in the legislative session. You would be appalled at the individuals that have been elected to represent their constituents and how arrogant that they are, and how they get up there and how they treat the voters. And the audacity, which is they've been voted in to represent the people. Most of them are bought out by special interest, and they really don't care what we have to say. So we really need to press them and show up in big numbers. And I'm telling you, I'm so thankful for Governor Lombardo and his veto pen, because some of the bills that they were passing would have been so disastrous to us in our everyday lives. And it's dangerous what they do when they're up there. And we got to show up. We've got to show up, and we've got to push back and make our voices heard.
Yeah, but even if the county came out with some kind of
Yeah.
scorecard, just for the people in Clark County,
Yes.
if nothing else, all the legislators, this is what we accomplished, that didn't get passed because of the Governor Lombardo and the legislators. It's really important for people to be reminded how important their vote is, because the next thing you know, they don't bother to vote, and the next terrible legislation gets passed and they didn't bother to vote.
Fortunately, yes, and the Nevada policy puts out some really good information.
They are so, I was going to mention them. Their social media, they rock.
Serpalis and
I love
his
him.
group, they do a tremendous job, and the data that they give us afterwards is also great. And I'll tell you, having been a candidate, they put together a book for you that goes through the entire previous legislative session, goes through every bill, goes through the goods and the bads. And I mean, to really help educate you about what Carson City is like. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate their good work.
They do amazing work. And they're also doing a lot of TikTok and everything else now.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Sarpalis.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And he's got a bunch of young people in there who are so smart. Y'all know this, right? Super, super sharp people who know how to get the message out. I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah.
But for people who are, they're talking to, as you mentioned, to the people. These are your issues. This is
Yes.
what the waitress
Yes.
told me in the restaurant.
That's right.
Or what this is what the trucker told me, or the normal people, the real people that a lot of politicians don't bother with. They need to pay attention to them, and they need to appeal to them. So maybe some of these people don't bother voting, and all of a sudden they realize how things are affecting them, whether it's no taxes on tips or whatever. They suddenly realize how important Republican votes are.
Yes. I would like to share a little bit, because sometimes people are like, why get involved with politics? And have you ever heard people say, "Oh, I don't get involved with politics"? But the fact is, every one of us, every day of our lives, are involved in politics. Some of us just more active than others. But, having been raised in a military family, I learned about service before self at a very young age. And I was a very, very, very young girl when the Vietnam War broke out. And my father served in Vietnam. But years later, well, not even years later, one of the things that impacted me as a child, and I think really gave me a passion for a love of our country and wanting it to be the best country it could and being so proud of it, was I was very impacted by a local family in our church. They had 2 daughters and 1 son, and their only son at age 19 got drafted and went to Vietnam, and he ended up dying there. And before he died, he had written a poem home, and they found it in his belongings. And that poem now is on his headstone. Just so happens Kent Purcell Jr. is buried next to my grandmother and grandfather. And so as a young child, this incident that impacted me continues to impact me to this day, because every time I go home and I visit my grandparents' grave, I'm reminded of the service and sacrifice of Kent Purcell Jr. and the family that lost their only son. And I'm reminded that I have an obligation to try to make this world a better place. And that's why I do what I do.
Right. We can never give up. We have to stay in the fight and stay involved as much as we possibly can, because if you don't, and that's a great point that you made about politics. We are all involved in politics.
Yes.
It affects all of us, whether we choose to get involved in it or not, choose to run for office or not. We're affected by the policies that are. I remember watching, speaking of the arrogant people, I remember watching the county commission meetings when everybody stood up and went into the county commission and pleaded with them to retract the mask mandate. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I watched it online, and it must have been 100 people who spoke. Everybody except for one ding dong. Everybody else was against the mask mandate, and they just sat there smug, and they voted to continue the mask mandate. And I thought, these are a bunch of arrogant creeps who don't give a rat's butt what we think, and that's what drives you crazy. But at the local level, you can have a lot more impact on things when you email your legislator. They're supposed to be knocking on your door. They're supposed to be paying attention to what you do. They're supposed to be sensitive to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that really matters, because politics affects you whether or not you choose to get involved in it.
And I will tell you because I always want to give credit where credit is due. And I do think this last legislative session, the political director of the Clark County Republican Party, she's not running again, but Heather Florian, I think, really tried to do a really good job with keeping the members up to date on, things that were going on. And that's good, but that doesn't help us with our fundraising issues and electing Republicans. We still have a lot of work that we have to do in that arena.
No question about that. So talk about some other things you'd like to see change if you were to become chair of the Clark County Republican Party.
So right here.
I was wondering what that
Yeah.
was. Is that Avon? What is
Yeah,
that?
no. This is a results-driven strategy. This is, say, one of the issues within the party, and it's been going on not just the last 2 years or 4 years, but for, I think, a long time, it's just kind of flied by the seat of their pants. And I know from being in the business world that you have to sit down and you have to do planning, and you have to say, what do we want to accomplish? And then you have to build the tactics, the action steps that you are going to take in order to move the needle. And so when I look at the party, there are a lot of things that we can be doing differently, but we have to have goals. We have to know, what is it that we want to accomplish? If we want to improve voter turnout, how much money do we need to work on building precincts and volunteers and messaging and voter registration? So you have to build a plan. You cannot just hope that we elect people. You cannot just hope that we bring in a certain amount of money. You have to put a measurable plan in place and really have a very results-driven strategy. If we are, for example, there's 800 and something precincts in Clark County. if we want to have a precinct captain in every one of those, well, we got to build our party. Because right now, as we sit here today, we only have a party of right around 600 people. That's not going to get us very far. By growing membership, we grow volunteers. And you know, I see this party as one of where we have really active committees, and they're all focused, and we have regular meetings, and we talk about how we're doing, how we're moving the needle, what the progress is that we're making. But you gotta have a plan, and it hasn't had a plan.
Well, that's the whole thing. And once again, this from the Clark County Republican Party's website. One of the things the leader's supposed to do, execute a comprehensive campaign plan. And going back to what you said at the beginning, I mean, where's the comprehensive campaign plan? That's what you need. And it would start with the precincts and getting people out there and then getting good candidates. That's very, very important. So financially, I mean, how are we going to crawl out of this hole?
That's a good question. And I'm glad you asked, because, you know, we have put together a fundraising plan. We have identified an individual who has a very strong finance background. He is like a CPA, and he's done a lot of different things with really, really big events in California. He's moved here now, and the party has operated. So one of the problems is the party has not had a finance director, and the party has not had a budget. And you have got to know how much money you need to be bringing in just to pay your operational overhead.
Wait a minute, there's no budget?
There has not been a budget.
No spreadsheet.
There's not been a budget. And so we have to be able to say, in order to, because I'll tell you the other thing, I've done a lot of research, I've been reading up on other county parties across the nation and trying to determine what do they do that we're not doing, okay? And one of them is the critical piece of having that budget and that finance director. And then you've got to work on, and the other thing is a lot of successful county parties have an executive director. Look, if you're going, you have to think of our party as a business. A business has to have office hours, it has to be open, and it has to be accessible. And you need an executive director that kind of brings everything together. So we've got to do a lot of things. We've got to do a lot of things differently. But when you break it down, yeah, you've got to create, you've got to get small money donors, you've got to get large money donors. You've got to look at everything your party does as a revenue bucket, and then how do we take advantage of that revenue bucket. We will have a budget that says, gosh, we're going to need X amount of money a month to pay our bills, to pay our utilities, to pay our insurance, to pay an executive director, whatever. And then we're going to go to the membership, and we're going to we're going to have fundraising that fuels victory. Okay. And we're going to ask the members to contribute. We're going to go to businesses. We're going to create business sponsorships. We're going to earn back the trust of a lot of the large donors who have stopped donating to the party. And look, my intent has never been in order to criticize the current leadership, except to say results are results and they're real. Okay, the results are results and they are real. And we are foolish if we don't acknowledge them. And we have to understand that the only way you're going to get a different result is to do something different. And so, it doesn't give me pleasure that the current chair has failed in his role, but he has, and so we have some really strong things we're going to do. And I'll tell you, when I was in business, I hired thousands of people, trained, developed, mentored, coached a lot of people to help them have successful careers. But, sometimes you would have to say to someone, I like you, but this just isn't working out. And actually help them understand this just wasn't the right place for their strengths or their talents. And maybe it would be better if they went and did something else. And, the thing is this, because this is what bothers me, in the Review Journal article, look, we all know that Jesse has legal troubles. We can try to justify them. We can try to do whatever, but he has legal troubles. And
That
so
becomes a distraction.
it becomes a distraction.
And the public sees that,
Yes.
and they say, what in the heck? The Republicans are doing this? That's the problem.
And it is very difficult to go to a donor and say, hey, will you cut me $100,000 check because I want to put on a Lincoln Day dinner? Will you cut me a $50,000 check when the chair is consistently in the paper with some legal issue?
And there's no budget.
And
Go
I'm
back to no
not- and
budget
again,
too.
yeah, and there's no budget. And you can't even show a plan as to what you're trying to accomplish, how this money is going to be utilized for the good of the party or to help you get the results that you want to get. And you have to do that. And I'm sorry if, in the business world, if you harm the brand,
That's right.
you are terminated. And so this is our time to say, Jesse says in this article, I accepted responsibility for what he calls a minor issue. We could dispute that, put that aside. I did so because I wanted to keep the focus where it should belong, and that's building our organization. Now, I will just say to that, if that is truly your intent, Jesse, I wish it were, because if it is truly your intent to keep the focus where it should belong on that is building the organization, then the best thing you could do is step down as chair, allow us to recognize and show appreciation for the fact that you have served 4 years, but help us move forward.
Yeah, it seems like quite a distraction, and that's what people look at. Your average person says, I don't want to give money to this. I'm going back to the budget thing. I'm
Yes.
still stunned that there's no budget. If you have a fundraising dinner, if you have anything, why would anybody give you money for that when they don't know where the
They
money's
won't.
going? There's no
They
idea.
won't.
There's nowhere.
They won't, and that's why we've continued to struggle.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
sad that it's come to this point. So going forward, obviously, I don't know whether, you're going to win or not. Obviously, he's been endorsed by the governor, right?
Yes.
Would you,
I believe
any
he
idea
has.
why?
That it's very
question.
perplexing because out of the two candidates, there's one who has made phone calls, knocked doors, and done fundraising for the governor, and that's me. There's one who actually ran for office, putting up a lot of their own money to try to take out the Senate Majority Leader and protect the governor's veto. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. But I will say this, it doesn't matter. To get the endorsement of individuals who are not part of the CCRP, who've never been a part of the CCRP, who have not attended meetings, who have not seen the chaos, who've not seen the dysfunction, who don't know what the finances are like, their opinion honestly doesn't matter. You know whose opinion matters? The people that are here tonight. The voting members of the Central Committee who try to be there, who try to make a difference. The voting members who want to go to a meeting and actually have a business meeting, who want to see the meetings conducted with decorum and professionalism. Those are the people whose voice matters, because the chair is not the county party. The chair is responsible to oversee the management of the party. And the chair should be supportive of all members of the party, not using their party for their own interest.
That makes sense. So how does 2026 look at this point? If he were to get reelected to Sherry, what
Yeah.
direction does the party have at this point?
So one thing I'm concerned about that's critically important is you have to face sometimes the brutal facts of reality. Okay. And look, we were very fortunate in the state of Nevada that the Trump team had a strong campaign and that we have the rules. Okay. Because the rural communities in Nevada turned out big and they're Republican. But we did not win in Clark County. And the other thing is, we cannot look at voter registration on a state level. We have to continue to focus on our county. Okay. I want Clark County to win, because when Clark County wins and we're 75% of the county, that helps our chair win in Nevada, and our chairman is going to be reelected this weekend, and we need to deliver a winning Clark County for him. Okay. Because that helps the state. And so voter registration right now, there's been some talk about a growth in voter registration. But honestly, when you look, and I have the stats here, this is June of 2022, Republicans were like 383,000 or something like that. And now today we're 387,000. So the thing is, in January of this year, we had 393,115 registered Republicans. In February, that went to 387. It stayed at 387, 387,800, 387,811, 387,800. We're down 5,000 voters since January. Now, the reason I say that is voter registration will help us in certain areas where we have a very close Dem to Republican differential. And so we've got to drill down on the areas where we have closer voter registration percentages and really do a lot of work increasing voter registration. And it's a challenge. And I don't necessarily blame any one person for this, because I just think that we need to look at the facts and face the facts and not act like the facts are something that they're not. We would be very foolish to say that voter registration for Republicans is growing. I wish it were, but quite frankly, it's decreasing for Democrats and Republicans. While at the same time, the nonpartisans has grown by over like 165,000. I was just going to say that.
Right? Now, I don't have those numbers in front of me like you're looking at. I
Yeah.
have looked at them obviously in the past. The last time I looked at them, there were more nonpartisan voters, independents, everybody else, than there were Democrats or Republicans. How do we convert those people to be Republican? They don't have to leave their party. We just want them to vote Republican. How do we get them?
This is where we have to get into these communities. And we have to be visible. We have to be doing town halls. We have to be giving back. We have to be connecting with the schools. We have to be connecting with the demographics of that community, finding out what their needs are. And you gotta be holding town halls. Again, we can't assume that we know what their pain points are. I guarantee you the pain points of someone who lives in downtown Las Vegas is way different than the pain point of someone who lives up in, the hills in Summerlin. So we've really got to get down deeper in the neighborhoods. And that's why the precinct level work is so important, because the precinct level work gets you into the neighborhoods. And now you are using your Republicans to connect neighbor to neighbor to neighbor in their neighborhood, and people become persuadable because you're doing things on a neighborhood level. But I just think, look, the voter registration isn't even the be all know all.
But it matters, because most of those people are going to vote for somebody.
Right. So maybe, because that's the other part of voter registration. We just generally only have about a 70% turnout. And so the important thing is, if somebody registers to vote, that we get them engaged enough to turn out to vote. So, one of the ways we win is we win by engaging with people who are already Republicans. And I don't think we've ever really had any outreach to some of these low propensity Republicans to say, we need you, we want you. I don't think we've ever reached out or invited them to come to something. So some of them you're never going to get engaged, but we've never tried. So there needs to be some outreach to the low propensity Republicans that don't get involved and say, we need you, we want you, we appreciate you. And then at the same time, you do have to start building relationships with the nonpartisans and say, how can we help? What's important to you? And be able to show them that our platform is the answers and the solutions to their pain points.
I'll tell you something that's not being discussed enough. Lisa, I know, had to run off to something else, but they're trying to put a homeless shelter in the middle of town. Anybody know that? Anybody following that story? They're trying to put a homeless shelter at Charleston and Jones, a 900-bed homeless shelter. all right? In a neighborhood where there are like 20 schools and houses, every house south of Okie is 500,000 plus. And this is where they think a homeless shelter should go. Lombardo's got his name on that. He's going to lose. He's going to lose. He only won by 15,000 votes the last time. So he's going to lose. He's pissed off 5 zip codes. And he has no idea how mad they are. I have friends who live over there. They are livid. 900-bed homeless shelter in the middle of town. Big mistake. So the reason I ask you that, I'm not asking you for an opinion on that. But the point is, if the governor Lombardo is not getting reelected, we're one vote away, as
No,
you
we
know.
have to get him reelected.
Exactly.
Our party has endorsed him. We're committed to
No,
him.
I'm not
yeah.
going to ask you
Yeah.
about that. I'm not going to ask you about that. I'm saying this is my opinion that this is going to hurt him hugely. If he doesn't get reelected, and I'm not saying he's not, I'm just saying, I think probably not because of that. If he doesn't get reelected, it's even more important that we have enough Republicans in the legislature to stop him, to stop whoever it may
Yes,
be,
yes.
Aaron, whoever it's going to be. I don't think Sisolak's going to run again. I don't know. But we've got to stop whoever that is, we've got to stop that Democrat in their tracks. This is really important. Talk about that. I'm not asking you to give an opinion about the governor not getting reelected. I'll take the heat for that. I'll take the heat for that. I'm just saying this is how important this is, because he only won the state by 15,000 votes last time. And even though the Democrats suck right now, and even, did you see the story, Sam Altman, who created ChatGPT? A billionaire, Democrat forever, big donor, says like he's politically homeless now. These are all people abandoning the Democrat parties. We've got a huge opportunity. I don't know why Lombardo's doing this unforced error.
The interesting thing is, obviously, Motor Voter has created that huge, big new block, right? Because I've talked to people and they say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable when I go to DMV to register my car and they ask me how I want to vote in telling that person. So they just say, and they don't want someone like, and a lot of people just don't want to be labeled an RRD. They want the freedom and flexibility of being able to choose how they want to vote, right? But inherently, when you're able to say to people, do you think government is effective and efficient? They go, no. Well, do you really want to grow government? No. You want your taxes to go up? No. You want your children to have a better education? Yes. Do you have increased crime in your neighborhood? Yeah. You know why? Because the Democrats voted for these lax. They don't want to make theft a crime anymore.
Right.
They've gutted the grading scale. When you're able to have these conversations, almost all of those people do align with our party and our values.
That's right.
A lot of them don't know it because we've just failed to connect.
Right.
But voting registration is important because you can change the dynamics of if we're tied and we're both going to have 70% turnout, how we're going to win? It's that third party block,
because
right?
we're
That
one
swing
vote away, as
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from them having a super majority. That's why we've got to hold on.
Yeah, and really the thing is, we have not made gains in our state legislature for many, many cycles. I can't, again, not gonna, have to be fair in saying that, yeah, we didn't make real gains this time. We didn't make real gains last time, but it's been several cycles. We've got to come together now, and this is, again, where strategy makes a difference, is you cannot possibly impact every Senate district and every Assembly district, right? There's too many. So what you have to do is you have to study, and we've got a lot of data guys, data analytic guys who can show us where the greatest opportunities to flip are based upon the makeup of the voter, based upon past voting. And so we need to be fully focused on doing all we can to grow the voter registration in particular areas. I'll tell you right now, Senate 8 is one of them. It's a really close. Senate 8 is comprised of Assembly 2 and Assembly 5. Assembly 2 is Heidi, so half of it is Republican. And the other is really, really close. And we have an opportunity to target Brittany Miller on her terribly bad voting record. So we've got to be strategic in the areas that we know have opportunity and get really engaged and connected in those communities with the messages that resonate with them. Yeah.
We're going to wrap. Danny said wrap. I was just going to do that, Danny, but thank you for reminding me. Look at it. It's 8:14.
Yeah.
Are we good? Are we good on time? Jill, thank you. Did you guys enjoy this, I hope?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I hope we asked some good questions, and I know she answered the questions very well, and I think that's
Listen,
important.
I'll be around for anyone who wants to carry on the conversation. We also, as you leave, we have a postcard for you. The Win Clark County Coalition is a group of about 250 people that came together after the last election and simply said, let's work together to try to bring in change. There's an endorsed slate of candidates. I think Rob Miney's here is running for vice chair, and Perry's is running for secretary. Eddie Facey, the current treasurer, is running for reelection, and Guadalupe Reyes is running for political director. And this card has all of our contact information. So if you want to reach out by phone and connect with anyone and ask additional questions, we're here for you.
Thank you, Jill, so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Oh, and you guys can follow me on all the socials. Heidi Harris Show, Heidi Harris Show, Heidi Harris Show. I'm doing radio in South Carolina tomorrow and Friday, 4 hours in the afternoon. It starts noon to 4. The information's on Heidi Harris Show Facebook page, so check it out if you want to. And you can hear me. That's Trump country down there in South Carolina. Thanks, guys.
It's been a long